Today, a shooting in Tulsa quickly disappears from the mainstream media. You'll never guess why. The Biden administration issues the largest student debt cancellation in agency history, and some moments at a Beto O'Rourke rally here in Dallas that, let's just say, you're not going to want to miss. We've got all of that and more coming up, and it all starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I'm Sara Gonzalez, and yes, back by popular demand. It is Thursday, and that means it is Pat and Stu Thursday. We've got Stu Burguiere, host of Stu Does America, also Pat Gray, host of Pat Gray Unleashed, both at the same time. Who knows what could happen? So I want to. Can I just say, I can't wait to get to the Beto stuff. I know we're going to get to it later, but I can't wait. And I didn't even get to talk to you guys about it beforehand.
I happened to see some of it last night. I'm very interested to talk to you about it, honestly, more than talking to us about it. I want to hear what you...
I can't wait.
I can't wait.
I can't wait.
Okay.
But I guess we'll get to the actual headlines of the day first. So last night, we heard that there was a shooting in a hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This resulted in 4 deaths. The gunman also died of a self-inflicted gunshot. One of the victims was the gunman's surgeon, apparently, Dr. Preston Phillips. The gunman complained of post-surgery pain and sought additional treatment, and he blamed his surgeon for that pain. Investigators later found a note on the scene that authorities said made it clear that the gunman intended to kill his doctor and anyone who got in his way. Now, the general consensus from sort of the media, but also certain lawmakers, including New York City councilwoman Hermeline, I don't know how to say the rest of her name, so I'm just going to call her Hermeline, immediately assumed that the shooting, of course, had to do with, as we know, all shootings have to do with, which is white supremacy. She tweeted out, "We can't even process one mass shooting before the next occurs. Today's atrocity in Tulsa happened on the 101st anniversary of the Tulsa Black Wall Street massacre. White supremacy is clearly a factor." Did I mention the suspect is a black male between 35 and 40 years old?
Well, this is a huge problem in the black community, the white supremacy of the black community.
Was it Larry Elder?
Maybe it was.
Maybe
he was a Republican.
He's a white supremacist.
There we go.
So
that's a fascinating one. That's one to look at, and let's just reverse the colors here for a second. If she is I believe a woman of color. I don't want to misgender her, but I believe she's a woman of color. So if let's say a white person were to in their tweet reactively blame a black person for a mass murder and get it wrong, what do you think would happen? Do you think people would notice? Do you think people would be making a big deal about it the next day? I think they might. It's really bad. In fact, it's almost the textbook definition of racism to just blame a race based on negative characteristics you've assigned to everyone with that skin color.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of what racism is. And so she just demonstrated to you what racism is. Look,
so hold on. You just noted she is a woman of color.
Yes.
She's not. She can't be racist. That's factually impossible.
I'm going to disagree with that analysis.
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to go by the definitions of the words and not these new mythical standards we've created. It really is important to call that out because that's what that is. Look, white people have been racist too. There were in Buffalo. We saw a white racist. It can happen. And white supremacy is a problem, though, as it compares to other problems we have in our society. It's a lot smaller than the media would have you believe. But it does exist. And I don't know about you, but I've never seen anybody in the Blaze have a problem calling it out. Right. Everybody I know who's on the right says, you know what, white supremacy, you might have the scale of the problem wrong, but it is a problem. And when you see it, I want those ideas to be stamped out and ridiculed because they're terrible, terrible ideas. Judging people by skin color is dumb. That's what the conservative position is. That is not the position of the left right now. They believe judging people by skin color is ridiculously important. In fact, it might be the most important way to judge someone. And I'm never going to go down that road. I refuse. I refuse to do it.
It's interesting to know, too, that white supremacy is not necessarily a right-wing problem. We saw that in Buffalo. The guy was not right-wing. The guy was not a conservative. That's been the case many, many times. In fact, white supremacists dating back in history, were Democrats. They were left-wing. They supported slavery. They didn't support civil rights. I mean, on and on. I don't know how this got flipped on its head and suddenly Republicans became the racists to target. But that's really never been the case. I mean, there have been individual racists who happen to be Republicans. But really, when you were to look at it historically, it's almost always Democrats. It's almost always the left.
I have to tell you, when I get a lot of racist insults thrown my way.
I bet you do.
It's 10 out of 10 times, it's someone on the left.
Yes.
It's not the Republicans. It's always someone on the left.
Even when you look at the policy prescriptions of these groups, I mean, look at the alt-right, look at these Christian identity groups, quote-unquote Christian identity groups. They are almost, without fail, pro-choice. Because shockingly, they want black children to be aborted, which is interesting that you agree with them on that very specific point, Democrats. They also are, for things like universal health care. We know the Nazis they were socialists. They wanted full control of the government. So we want very little control of the government, which gives us nothing in common with people like that. But in addition to that, at its very heart, racism is collectivism, right? It's taking people and judging them not as individuals, but as members of some group. And you can make wide judgments on these groups because that's how you see them. You see them as cogs in a wheel. That's collectivism. It's not individualism, and it's against everything I stand for, and I know what you guys stand for as well.
Yeah. Just one more quick note on this. It is interesting, too, because when you think about what white supremacy means, couldn't you even say just the way that the left acts, well, I should say the white left, acts like they have to be the ones to tell black people what to be offended at, and they're the ones who are taking care of the poor black people. Isn't that in itself white supremacy? Like, you guys think that you're so superior to black people, they can't think for themselves, they can't do things for themselves, they have to have the white man helping them out in life, and they can't do it on their own. To me, that's more white supremacist than I've ever seen.
And we've heard that from Joe Biden multiple times, just lately.
Yeah.
He's talked about how black people don't know how to fill out registration cards. They don't understand the voting process. They can't get to the DMV. They don't have driver's licenses. We're told they're just stupid. That's what he thinks.
He said when we were talking about the vaccines and stuff, he's like, well, they don't, minorities can't get on a computer and search up where to get a vaccine.
Where does that come from?
Wait, what? That's white supremacy.
Absolutely racism, right? I mean, you're judging an entire group of people on some weird negative characteristic you've manufactured for them. I don't believe those things are true.
No.
The right does not believe those things are true.
No.
It's the left that believes those things are true. The left believes...
And by the way, blacks don't believe they're true either. And they don't support those policies.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to. We were talking about Joe Biden. I want to switch over to the baby formula shortage saga. Yesterday, reporters pressed Joe Biden on the fact that multiple executives knew how intense the impact of this Abbott Labs, which is, of course, the manufacturer of the baby formula. They knew how intense the impact of this Abbott shutdown would be. Biden said in response, which you'll see in this clip, Biden said, well, they did, but I didn't. I didn't actually know about it until April. Watch.
I don't think anyone anticipated the impact of the shutdown.
Well, I think we're having a problem with the audio.
In the Abbott facility. And it was actively shut down because the formula was...
Okay, so...
I didn't hear any of that, but I learned as much as any other Biden statement I've ever witnessed.
Yeah, I'm told in the control room that they can hear it.
Oh, okay.
So we're not actually sure if the viewers can even hear that clip or not, which means we're really off to a great start today. So he said that he was not aware of the severity of the problem until early April. I find that very hard to believe, but don't worry. All that being said, Biden also announced he has a solution to this crisis, which is, he says, is 3.7 bottles of formula, which I don't think is a lot, but let's listen.
So we're getting a full 3.7?
Yeah.
Not 4 full bottles.
Wow.
Definitely not that much.
But 3.7?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's going to go a long way.
Do we have that? Is that going to play or not? Okay, let's watch.
Today, we're announcing the United Airlines has agreed to offer cargo space for Kendall NutriCare for the delivery of 3.7 bottles of the formula.
Yeah,
here in the
3.7
States.
bottles.
I want to thank United Airlines for
All
partnering
right.
with us to get this done. They're doing it.
He can't get numbers. He cannot get numbers right. Have you noticed that tendency?
I'm so proud right now.
Though he did not say how big the bottles were. So I mean, if they're like plane-sized
They're
bottles, that
each
could be
the size of the Empire State Building.
Wow, see,
Yeah, that's
that
a lot.
would be
That's a big
lot of
bottle.
bottles would be
That's
a
a
lot in
lot
that
of formula.
case.
I don't think a baby's going to be able to drink from that.
No,
that's
no, it's gonna be hard.
big bottle nipple. I'm just saying.
This is unbelievable. I mean, you know, first of all, it's the most ridiculous plan ever. Like, we're just advancing a couple weeks of formula that we were already going to receive anyway, and he calls it Operation Fly Formula, which is the worst name. It's legitimately what they're calling it.
Yeah, but what
are we doing? We're flying formula. Let's call it Operation Fly Formula then. And okay.
They don't get creative points.
No,
they don't get creative points.
But this is, of course, look, you have a possible, we don't even know if it really was a contamination that affected these babies exactly.
They haven't found any evidence to prove it.
So we don't know. It's possible maybe, that, look, these things happen, right? They do happen occasionally at factories. The company tried to react and recalled, much, much more than could possibly have been affected because they wanted to be careful. Understandable. They're cleaning up this factory. Understandable. But like, our system is absolutely built for any other product to be able to deal with a shortage like this. One company losing a factory, like, that shouldn't be a national shortage. But there are so many problems built around the baby formula thing. They won't let us import European formula in many cases just because of dumb labeling restrictions, even though theirs in many cases is higher quality than ours.
Way higher.
Part of the the replacement to NAFTA thing that they signed, a big part of that was protectionist for dairy. So the Canadian formula that could be being produced in Canada can't cross the border because there's all sorts of quotas and fees on it. So they can't produce it there. The other thing that's huge on this is the number one buyer of baby formula by far is WIC, the food stamp program. And the way they hand out these contracts is they give out exclusive contracts to a company for an entire state. So if Abbott is the entire state provider for like Nevada, there's no one else supplying Nevada with any formula because they get all this space on the shelves. I mean, again, there's a little bit that seeps in specialty sort of areas. But like, you go for that big contract because it's almost all the business. And then there's no one to replace the business if that company has a problem. So all of these government restrictions built this into a machine that made this way, way worse than it normally should have been. And instead of loosening all these restrictions quickly, like the government could have done, they instead are doing Operation Fly Formula, which is just ridiculous. It's just taking the formula that was already coming here and bringing it here on a plane instead of a boat.
Well, and also bragging about it as if like us being basically a third world country when it comes to baby formula and like, look, we got you baby formula that you should have had because you live in the United States, as if we're supposed to be like, God, thank you.
The first time in American history, another country sent emergency food to us. That's
and they're bragging about it.
Embarrassing, and they're bragging about it. They love it. It's
like
great.
This reminds me of when they bragged about the airlift out of Afghanistan. Like it was just some incredible
like it was
feat.
the greatest thing they've ever done militarily.
This is the bigger airlift after. We're watching like people blow up on television. You can't brag about this, but they just don't care. They did it anyway.
They did.
It's not working, though. I mean, I do think the American people are seeing the truth here. The media is doing their best to hide it. But, Joe Biden just had an approval rating at 34%, 47 of 50 states he's underwater. Now, that's not just red states.
No.
That's blue states. There's only three. I think it was Hawaii, Massachusetts, and Vermont. We're the only three states in the union that he is above water as president of the United States. So, the American people are able to look through and see through what the media is trying to do here and what the ridiculous spin of the Biden administration is and see what the truth is. And the truth is they suck.
Yeah, Pat, last word.
Well, fortunately, my daughter has an infant. She's, I think, 9 months, maybe 10 months, still on formula. And she can't, it's really hard to find. Yeah. So we switched to whiskey. But the good thing is,
Really?
we water it down with tequila, and it works really well. She goes right to sleep.
Really?
Bang, just like that. Yeah, she's out for the night.
I bet.
Yeah, it's working really well.
Yeah,
Don't try this at home.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd love to see how she develops as she goes to school.
I'm anxious to see.
Well, I know you don't drink, but your grandchildren can drink.
I mean,
Oh, man, they are drinkers.
it's an emergency. It's an emergency.
Okay.
All right, so you know what? We're living under the Biden administration. It drives us all to drink. We've got more to come, including the Biden administration's education department canceling student debt. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Raycon. So, look, I use Raycon wireless earbuds. I'm a little obsessed with them. I'm not going to lie. I use them when I go work out. I use them when I'm listening to a podcast. I use them for everything. That is because Raycon's everyday earbuds look, feel, and sound better than ever. They've got these optimized gel tips, and they come in different sizes, so you can find the perfect in-ear fit. And they're not going to budge. They're not like, I'll say, a competitor, okay, who has those really long stems, and they weigh your ear down and they pull out of your ear very easily because they got the stems weighing it down, all right? Don't do that. Go with Raycon. They've got 3 sound profiles to match what you're listening to, plus noise isolation and awareness mode, so you can choose to be immersed in sound, like maybe when the kids are around, or be able to hear your surroundings whenever you need to. They give you 8 hours of playtime, 32-hour battery life. You're going to get the same audio quality as the other premium brands, but at half the price. You got to check them out. You can go to Buy Raycon. That's BUYRaycon.com/Y to get 15% off. That is BUYBuyRaycon.com/Y. The Biden administration's Department of Education canceled $5.8 billion in student debt yesterday for former attendees of Corinthian colleges. This is the largest single student debt cancellation ever made by the Department of Education. The Education Secretary said in a statement, as of today, every student deceived, defrauded, and driven into debt by Corinthian colleges can rest assured that the Biden-Harris administration has their back and will discharge their federal student loans. This was a college, the Corinthian colleges. It was a for-profit entity that filed for bankruptcy in 2015, and they apparently engaged in widespread and pervasive misrepresentations related to a borrower's employment prospects, including guarantees that they would find a job, according to the Department of Education. And so this was obviously a move that they were trying to decide what they were going to do, how they were going to make a play in canceling student debt. They were floating around, the $10,000 per borrower who earns less than $150,000. But this was what they decided to do. Look, it's interesting because you have all of these people, all of these radicals who have latched onto Joe Biden because they were promised all of these things, and he keeps either not delivering at all or just delivering like just a tiny sliver just to say like, look, I'm canceling student debt. But it doesn't feel like it's going to appease these people.
No, nothing will appease these people.
Right,
You're never
which is
woke
the problem with making deals with the devil.
No, yes, it is, and it's a big problem here. He doesn't have the right, the power to be able to do this in the widespread way that him and Bernie Sanders dream of at night. So he is trying to do this little part. I mean, it's hard to. There are some people who argue he actually does have the power to do this one specific thing because of the way the bankruptcy is proceeding. I don't know enough about it to talk to you about the details of it. But what I find fascinating about this in particular is we are in the middle of a massive inflation crisis. The worst one we've seen in 40 years. Inflation's going through the roof. And why is that happening? Because we've spent so much money, right, and we have not enough in the supply. So too many dollars chasing too few goods. Mm-hmm. So you go through that process and you think about this particular move. Canceling debt. You are canceling debt of college students, former college students, that usually earn a higher income than the average person. You're canceling their debt. You're leaving people who didn't go to college with no benefit at all from this. And we know this is an inflationary measure. It's stimulating the economy. At least we know it if you believe none other than Joe Biden, who was pitching this exact policy a few months ago on the basis of it being a stimulus for the economy, right? They were telling us that this was going to help the economy and heat it up. Now it's overheated. The last thing we want to be doing is just canceling people's debt out of nowhere for what seems like no good reason, but they're doing it anyway. It's a typical way. I think you're right. He's trying to pander here.
Yeah.
And when people say you didn't get the debt cancellation done, he go, well, we did cancel $5.8 billion.
Right, the
biggest
largest
in
one,
history. And he'll
the
have an
largest
argument.
single, yeah.
Maybe that buys him a couple of, a seat or two in blue-leaning districts, because right now that's the field they're playing on. They're trying to defend not purple districts, not going after red districts. They're trying to defend blue districts.
Yeah, Stu hit on something too that I do find fascinating about the fact that this disproportionately benefits wealthy Americans. There was a Brookings Institution study done that the 40% of households earning the most income hold 60% of student loan debt. So most people who would gain from debt cancellation already make more than $74,000.
Yeah, there's a real fairness issue here.
Yeah.
You're paying off debt for certain people who are fortunate enough to fit into the Corinthian college debt payment thing. And then what about those who've already paid their debts? What about them? Why did they have to pay it? Are you going to reimburse them now? I mean, it's really amazing. What about those of us who don't want to have our taxes go up because you're canceling people's debt? I didn't go to college because I was fortunate enough to, in high school, find a career that started to show me that I don't need to go to college, really,
Maybe you should
to
get a
make
stipend,
a living.
though.
Yeah, maybe I should get a stipend. Yeah.
You need like repayment for your past hurt and pain.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Some might call that
Exactly.
reparations.
Reparations, yeah. It's funny because one of the reasons why you don't go to college if you don't go to college is because you look at the entire picture and you say, hey, do I really want to come out of this process $200,000 in debt and starting that far behind the starting line?
Right.
Yeah.
And you make that call and you say, maybe I will make a little bit less, especially early on in my career, but that's okay because I don't want to earn back that $150,000 in excess of my living expenses to try to get back to zero, to try to get back to the starting line of life, right? That's why you don't do it. And now they're saying, well, you get the benefit of college, you get to go around all of those people who made the opposite decision, and we're just going to cover it, and we're going to make them, who now have jobs and now have careers, we're going to make them pay for it. I mean, look, in this particular case, the Corinthian situation might not be as high incomes as some other colleges. I mean, that was kind of the complaint against the college system, and they always like to vilify for-profit universities. So I mean, who knows how much of this is true? But still, in a grand sense here, this is one of the worst policies the left has to offer. You're taking people who make six figures and giving them a giant break on their income and their debt payments. If you have no consequences for taking out debt, what sort of message are you sending to people?
Right.
I would love a world. I mean, everyone would love a world where you had a credit card and you got to just ring up stuff and never had to pay it. It'd be fantastic.
Nice.
It's not real, though. It's not the real world. That's the place we're supposed to be living.
Yeah, and it is the people who have the debt that made the decision.
Right.
Right? You didn't have to go to the college you went to.
Yep.
You didn't have to go to college at all.
Yep.
You could have gone to a less expensive college. You could have gone to a trade school. You could have done a lot of different things. You could have worked through high school and earned your way through college.
Or taken a semester, waited and worked, earned your way to take another semester, and it may take you longer, but you've got it paid off at the end of it. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, personal responsibility is not like a
It's
thing
not a thing anymore.
No, sadly. All right. When we come back, let's get into what happened last night at the Beto Town Hall here in Dallas. You're not going to want to miss that. First, we want to thank our sponsor, First Liberty Institute. So, look, court packing, it's being discussed by all of the Democrat leaders right now. It's a real danger to our country. Court packing is a coup, and of course, the usual suspects, Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, are working overtime on new radical plans to pack the Supreme Court. If we do not stop them from installing 4 more justices so they can rig the system in their favor, it will be catastrophic, not just for the court, but for our country and our way of life. We cannot let that happen. That is why First Liberty Institute is gathering a coalition of 1 million patriots to say no to court packing, say no to all of it, say no to the liberal agenda, say no to the Supreme Court coup. You're going to be in with the likes of Franklin Graham, former U.S. Attorney General Ed Meese, Dr. James Dobson, the Family Policy Alliance, the Heritage Foundation, and over 400,000 people just like you. You got to go sign your name now. That's all they're asking you to do. Go to Supreme Coup, that is COUP, supremecoup.com to sign First Liberty's letter. That is supremecoup.com. Good friend of the program, Robert Francis O'Rourke, had a town hall last night in Dallas. This was at a recreational center in the city of Dallas. And it was a town hall on protecting our kids. Because, look, he didn't want to protect the kids when they're in the womb. Okay.
No.
And you might argue he probably doesn't really care about the kids when they're out of the womb because he's fine with them being mutilated and trans surgeries and stuff like that. But there was a politically advantageous thing for him to jump onto, and so he did, which is protecting our kids and gun violence, because he first wanted to take our AR-15s, and then he said, look, I don't want to take anyone's guns. I want to protect the Second Amendment. And now, again, that it's politically advantageous to him, he does actually want to come for your AR-15s, even if you are a law-abiding citizen and already own the gun. But I digress. There was a town hall event. I walked in. I wanted to ask him a question of how he would, as a constituent and a reporter, I would say, how do you plan to take the AR-15s away from the citizens who already own them? Legitimate question, right? I would really love to know what his plan is for doing that. Unfortunately, I didn't get far because the entire campaign was waiting for me.
Yes, they were.
Knew what I looked like. I literally walked in the public building, scanned around for a seat, and was told by security that they wanted me to leave. I was not disruptive. I hadn't done anything. I was just trying to quietly sit there, as I do every single time I go to one of his events, because I'm not a disruptor. And they couldn't handle the idea, I guess, that someone might ask a tough but incredibly fair question about the plans that Beto O'Rourke claims that he has for the state of Texas. But I found a couple interesting moments within that particular night last night. So I had a friend on the inside, as I do. And he was in there, and they were just letting loose, letting it all come out, letting it all fly. And I found this particularly interesting. One of the official Beto O'Rourke, Beto for Texas volunteers, who says, you know what, I think whenever there's a mass shooting right now, it helps Beto. They are really saying the quiet parts out loud. Listen.
I think every time there's a mass shooting right now, it's going to help Beto.
Oh, yeah. So every time there's a mass shooting, it'll help Beto?
This was taken by my friend. He is a decorated disabled veteran. His name is Colton Crottinger. And you know what? God bless him, because that had to have, I felt like, you probably need about 20 showers after having to go in there and listen to that nonsense. But
that is clearly Beto's position on this shooting.
Yes.
I mean, he is 100% in the belief that this shooting helps him.
Yes.
And it's
well, that's
all
why he
about
showed
him.
up at the press
it's
conference.
why he showed up at the press conference, which, by the way, he disrupted, and he thought it was perfectly acceptable for him to disrupt a press conference. I walk in there to listen and try to ask a question, and I get escorted out by his security. It's interesting.
Well, he didn't plan to interrupt Sarah. He had no plans to do that whatsoever. Now, he
right.
told that to the journalists afterward, and he went. Now, sure, they had a whole arrangement with people holding seats and then communicating when Beto was coming down. They got up at the exact same moment and switched places, and then he stood up in front of the cameras at the exact opportune moment, and then walked out to a gaggle worth of reporters outside. The truth, of course, is that Beto is human scum. He is the lowest form of life our society can produce. And of course, watching him try to take advantage of the deaths of these children is among the most despicable things I've ever seen from anyone, politician or not. He is completely despicable. If the people of Texas fall for this idiot and the way he is acting right now, we deserve everything that we would get. And, good for you going there and actually trying to ask a question. That was apparently too much for them to handle. But look, I don't think he has any chance of winning this race.
No,
I don't. But he also knows that.
Yeah.
And that's why he's acting this way. And it tells you a lot about what kind of person he is. That when he gets desperate in his campaign, he will do anything, even try to build that campaign on the backs of dead children. That is the person this guy is. He's that terrible of a human being.
Yeah.
And I will say, I am behind Sarah very closely in how much I hate Beto at this point. Now, Sarah leads the pack. It's clear.
It's true.
Yeah.
Sara wins, and I'm not trying to win
Just
here.
on
I'm
commitment,
just trying
she
to get
wins.
second place.
Honestly, I'm fine with a tie. I welcome anyone. I'm not trying to like just monopolize that position. I welcome everyone else calling him out for what he is,
Yeah.
which
I'm
is
in
a
your group.
complete and total scumbag, completely disingenuous, completely hypocritical. He doesn't mean a word
No.
of anything that he says.
He's proven
just
that.
an opportunist.
I mean, when you vociferously during a presidential election, which is a national election, you're not worried about your Texas base necessarily, and you say, hell yes, I'm going to take your AR-15s, then you're asked about it during a Texas gubernatorial campaign, and you're like, oh, I don't want to
What
take
are you
anything
talking
from
about?
anybody. I just want to defend the Second Amendment. What?
Yeah.
What? He's got no spine
I would-
whatsoever, this guy. And he's got no chance.
I think that's true.
Like Stu
better
said,
be true.
I think he loses by 15, 20 points.
Yeah.
I hope
Maybe
so.
more.
I hope so.
I think he's going to be embarrassed.
I mean, he's having. It was a small recreational center. It was a little gymnasium.
Oh, really?
That they rented out, and I mean, I guess it may have looked like it was pretty packed, only because it was very compact and they had multiple rows.
They had a big open area, it seemed like, too, where you were walking around behind
It
where
was-
the chairs were. They,
yes.
they didn't put chairs throughout the entire auditorium.
No, they had bleachers, and the whole other half of the basketball court was
empty. Yeah. And I think, looking at Beto and realizing what kind of person he is I think really crucial here. Because, go back to, we weren't on last week, but go back to that event where he interrupted the press conference, which is, again, among one of the most despicable things I've ever seen from a politician in my entire life. But it wasn't just that he walked up there. It was that he had seat holders sitting there. How did that happen? Think about the process that gets to this. At some point, this shooting occurs, and Beto meets with his advisors, and he says, how do we take advantage of these children and their deaths? How do we make this better for us? How do we get not even a point in the polls, because I don't think that's even a consideration, but just how do we get a bunch of money in from left-wing donors from Illinois and California, built on the back of all these dead children? I know we'll send 2 aides up there to save seats for me, and then I'll walk up at a time so we can switch seats, and then I could stand up and get on television and get some attention. And guess what? I'm sure he did well with donations on that. I do not think the people of Texas are going to respect that sort of behavior. It's awful, and he's just a really bad guy. There are just sometimes people with bad policies. There's a lot of them on the Democratic side. There are also just trash human beings. Yeah. The guy is human garbage. That is what he is.
Yeah, I mean, let me just go through the last couple of months of just following the guy. So, at the first event I went to, obviously you guys know this, the viewers I know this, but I was assaulted by one of his staffers who tried to grab my phone while I was, again, not disrupting. My good friend Alex Stein, that's his thing. It's not my thing.
Right.
I don't do that. I was literally silently filming a question being asked, which again was a tough question. They seem to not want Beto to have to answer because they know he's a horrible candidate. They're that insecure. They know he can't answer the questions. They don't want the viral moment. And so instead they assault me. They use DPD as their mafia muscle to get rid of me. And then the next event I go to, they're berating me. They're calling me crazy. They're calling me a stalker, again, because I waited quietly and wanted to ask him a question. Okay, so violence committed against me, trying to box out their political opposition. Okay, so let's fast forward to this event when I have audio coming soon of one of the Beto campaign members, Beto staffers, saying that she wants to stab me and shank me, which is just lovely, along with one of his supporters, volunteers. I'm not really sure where she falls in that category, but she definitely is there for Beto, and she definitely threatened to kill me, which is when I started filming. So previous to me filming, she says, you don't know who I am, and when you find out who I am, you're gonna lose your And then she says, when I find your license plates, you're effing gone. You're effing gone. And let me show you the exchange that happened after she says that. Watch.
It's not nice.
It is. What did she just say? What did she just say?
That was not nice.
Plates and you're gone. I'm
I
gone
get your
what?
plates and
I'm
you're
gone
gone.
how? You'll see. I'm gone how? You see, you like to talk in here and want to yell and be loud and be aggressive, but when they kick you out, then you feel offended. Don't do that here. Get the out of here with your dick.
You represent Beto. Don't talk like that.
I don't represent Beto.
So what's your name, man? You're
giving
giving
all these shootings.
You're giving death threats. You're giving death, but you're giving death threats.
parking lot.
You're giving death threats,
You get you off the
man.
parking
You're
lot.
against shootings, but you're giving death
Why don't
threats.
you get you off the parking lot?
Hey, you don't have to leave. This is a public place.
What did she say?
Let me say
What did
this.
she say?
My name is Jamal Jefferson, your future
This guy was so
representative.
funny.
We do not condone any negative behavior to any American.
So shout out there to my new friend Jamar Jeffries or Jefferson, I can't remember, but he's running for a position in East Texas, and he was just lovely. I have a feeling I wouldn't agree with any of his ideologies, but he was a very nice person, and his whole point was we don't need to be so divided. We need to be coming together. But he was at the wrong event if that's what he wants, which is my point.
You're totally right. I mean,
This is who Beto O'Rourke attracts, because this is who Beto O'Rourke is.
I spent a good amount of time last night watching not only your entire video, which is like a half an hour long.
Go see it on Instagram.
I mean, at times scary. I said to Lisa, my wife, we were watching it together, and I said, I hope she's not down there by herself. I mean, these people, they looked aggressive at times. I mean, I didn't even hear the death threat. You said you weren't even filming it, but I didn't even see that because I know you had a couple different videos. I did see that you were down there with Alex Stein, who did something, as you said, a different approach from you, which is pretty funny in and of itself. But that's good. I mean, he
deserves it. He deserves all of it.
All of it.
I'm not the one to disrupt, but you know what? He deserves it.
He deserved it.
That's what he did.
Nothing that Alex or you said was untrue.
Right.
It was all true. He really does fantasize, or at least did fantasize, about killing children and is exploiting these kids' deaths for his own gain. That is his campaign right now.
Yeah.
He looked at that event, the event that we all. I mean, you couldn't possibly feel worse about that event. We all felt the same way, and he looked at it as an opportunity because he's dirt.
Yeah. All right. Well said. I don't think I can add anything to that. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
I cannot stand that guy.
I know.
I cannot stand him.
Our friend Matt Walsh over at the Daily Wire, his new documentary, What is a Woman, premiered last night. And in part of it, he spoke with Dr. Michelle Forcier, who detailed how she uses puberty blockers on young children. Let's watch that.
At what age does the medical transition begin with medication?
So medical affirmation begins when the patient says they're ready for it. So that could be a kiddo who is just starting puberty and panicking because they're getting breast buds or their penis is getting bigger and busier and they're worried about all kinds of masculine changes. And that way, puberty blockers, which are completely reversible and don't have permanent effects, are wonderful because we can put that pause on puberty. Just like if you were listening to music, you put the pause on and we stop the blockers and puberty would go right back to where it was, the next note in the song.
It's interesting because one of the drugs that's commonly used as a puberty blocker is Lupron, also used to chemically castrate sex offenders. But look, she's a doctor and she said it's all reversible. So that's fine.
Fascinating.
Nothing to see.
Well,
here.
once your penis falls off, you can easily just reattach it. It's
it.
just like the next note
Is that Velcro?
in a song.
Staples usually.
Yeah,
Usually any stapler will do
Really?
it. Yeah.
Doesn't
Swing
that
line
hurt?
is usually the one.
Yeah, it hurts
most
for a while, but it goes away.
Yeah.
It's like a worm, like it just regrows.
Kind of like
It's
that.
just like a worm
Yeah.
that regrows, Sarah. I'm glad. I didn't know you knew that much about the male anatomy, but yes, it's just like a worm that regrows. That's exactly how it is.
I have to make fun of it because it's just so stupid that
it's
we're having this
ridiculous.
conversation.
Well,
whenever they're ready.
Yeah, whenever
All
they're
right,
ready.
doctor.
What, 4, 5, 6,
Yeah.
when are they ready? It's fascinating because they did this thing with Leah Thomas this week where they talked about, she was trying to make the case that, I was stronger before and I got on all these, blockers and now I'm obviously weaker and I'm a woman. And it's like, well, there's a legacy effect of going through puberty as a male, which is, as you see here, she happens to be 14 feet taller than everyone she's competing against. And she doesn't shrink
about 2
because of these
feet
medications.
wider in the shoulder area, which is kind of important when you're a swimmer.
Yeah, exactly. The wingspan is kind of long. It's like your body you don't shrink. You don't go from 6'4" back down to 5'3" because you start taking puberty blockers. It's just one of these things where this stuff is so obviously insane. It's insane for a million different reasons. But I think I don't care if adults want to be insane. They can be insane all they want. Right. I don't really care. What I do care about is forcing children into irreversible decisions, despite what this one doctor is saying here. Some of it might be reversible. Like you might be able to, I'm sure if you take it, something different happens. This is why you take them. But that doesn't mean it's totally reversible. You're missing out on time. When you lose a year of puberty, you don't get that year back later on. That's not how this works. And regardless, even if it worked perfectly, it would still be insane.
Well, I mean, if it was fully reversible and all of that, you wouldn't have all of these people who have detransitioned, who cannot live normal lives anymore because of the effects of the drugs or the surgeries or whatever the case may be. I mean, there are real consequences. And by the way, most people grow out of it anyway.
And after surgery, the suicide rate is 19 times higher. 19 times higher than with the rest of the population.
So are you saying that means that the surgery is not solving the problem?
That's kind of what I mean by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be.
Well,
it doesn't seem to be.
The genesis of this, because we all look at this and say, okay, you've altered your body in this way, you're trying to live in some totally different way than the way you were born. All of these things are a problem. But just elevating gender to this importance level is also a problem in your life. If all you think about is what gender you are, you're seeing yourself with almost no value. I mean, I don't know. I'm a guy. I don't take all that much value of my life from that, though. Like that's just it's certainly part of who I am. And it certainly I have physical characteristics that are associated with it like everybody else. But it's not who I am. I don't think of myself, every day I wake up, I'm like, thank God I'm a guy, so I wear these clothes. And there are a lot of guys who wear totally different clothes and are still guys, right? Yeah. Just this focus on skin color and gender and sexuality and all of these things are just, they're side dishes of life. Yeah. It's not the main meal. It's supposed to be who you are as a person and the things you do for others, not what your skin color or gender is.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, and when we come back, a Pride Month video just for you. We'll be right back.
Yay!
That didn't sound like a serious.
Pride is one of the 7 days.
This is Isaac Simmons, a United Methodist Church candidate for ordination and associate pastor at Hope UMC in Bloomington, Illinois. He moonlights as a drag queen. He's a drag queen pastor and a drag evangelist who says that God is nothing. Watch.
God themselves is nothing. But if she were, she would be, preening her way down the runways of Paris and Montreal, strutting on that tightrope pulled taut between absurdity and opulence, balancing between too much and never enough. God is nothing. But if she were, she would be a seamstress.
I feel like probably as a pastor, he's in the wrong line of work.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And he's also just trying to get to people.
Right.
He just wants people to get all fired up. It's like the Dishwalla song. Tell me all your thoughts on God, because I really want to see her. I mean, whatever. I don't care if you think that God is female or male or non-binary.
Who knows what he identifies as?
I don't care.
Yeah.
But that is not religion. That's garbage.
I will say I had the under of 0.5 on Dishwalla references today, and now I've lost. So thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
I am very
welcome.
That sucks. It seemed like he was reading a script, almost like it was like reading a play. I don't know what that was.
I think it was a poem he wrote.
These are people who are just trying, going for attention. Right?
Just looking for some,
and seemingly someone who's trying to undermine the faith. I don't know all that much about that particular church, but that's not. At some point, it's just a bit.
Yeah.
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 Like, come on.
You know what? Let's move on to something really quickly before we have to go, which is, Stu, you've got a new special coming out tomorrow.
The definitive debunking on gun myths tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, and on podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Please go and subscribe and check it out. We're going to go through all the claims from the left. It's a big one.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.